Alright, all you glorious gamers out there, welcome to the PlayersToo Podcast, the video game podcast for gamers like you, by gamers like you. You can find PlayersToo on all the social media, that's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at PlayersToo.com, that's PlayerStoo.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podchaser, wherever, it all helps us out and it all helps towards the exposure of the show. While you're over there, if you could give us a little review as well, let us know and we'll give you a shout out on social media. Again, it really helps us, and thank you so much to anyone that's already done that for us. Alright, and on with the show. My name is Mark Henderson, and joining me again from the cupboard under the stairs like Harry Potter, it's Lewis Camley. How's it going, Lewis?
It's going pretty well, Mark. Yeah, I'm still here in this cupboard. I'm still surrounded by mattresses and boxes. Every week I tell myself that I'm going to come in and tidy this up and make it slightly more of an office space. But this week I've been furloughed from my job and I don't have to do any work for 3 weeks, so there's even less need to do that. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, just still living the lockdown life, playing some video games, watching some stuff, reading a lot more. It's not so bad at the moment, the lockdown. I mean, it's terrible to think of what's happening outside of our doors, but you know, the rest of it's not so bad so far. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. My work has let up. I have not been furloughed. I am still as busy as ever. However, it is nowhere near as bad as it was in the previous week that caused our podcast to be delayed by a day. And I do apologise for that, but it was basically unavoidable. Anyway, what have you been playing, Lewis?
This week I have finally, after months of talking about playing it, I finally got around to starting Luigi's Mansion 3.
Oh, Lewis's favourite game he never played.
Yeah, it was just one of those ones that caught my fancy before the turn of the year. So it came out on Halloween last year. And because I've loved the Mario games and because I have, since getting a Switch, been trying to get more into the Nintendo kind of world, so to speak, that we missed quite a lot of when we were growing up, I thought it would be worth giving it a bash. And I'm glad I did. I think about 3/4 of the way through, I was pretty convinced I would finish it before recording today. I think if we'd recorded about an hour or two later, I would have been finished the game. And yeah, it's fine, to be honest. It's a fine game. It's not very challenging whatsoever. There's pretty much no peril or any chance of not getting through it quickly, because even in combat, which is the only way really that you're ever going to fail, it pretty much rewards you with hearts no matter what is happening. So I've died I think twice in the game so far, and each time it's only been during a boss fight when I've just like taken a bit too long to work out what it is I'm supposed to do, you know, in that classic sort of Nintendo way where there's like a series of phases and you're supposed to do a certain thing at a certain point. And so I've been let down very slightly in that the puzzle elements of it are there but not especially taxing or challenging. It's not much of a head scratcher. It's kind of just like enjoy the nice little rooms and spaces and levels that they have built, which are great, and the game looks great, and like the Luigi stuff where you kind of create a separate character and you can manipulate things in different ways because of that. All of that stuff is nice. Like, it's a really well put together, well thought through game, but I can't really go on too much about it because I feel a little bit like I'm going through the motions basically. Like, I'm just getting towards the end. I've enjoyed what I've played so far. There's absolutely no chance I'm going to go back and get any of the kind of hidden collectibles that the game introduces. Quite a lot of this stuff that would keep you in its sphere for a long time, but I don't care about it. It's got collectibles all the way through that it's just like money basically that you hoover up, and as yet I have seen no reason to spend any of that money, and so there's quite a lot of padding on what is actually quite a thin video game, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been a little bit disappointing, but
I have to admit, Lewis, this is exactly what I thought this game would be.
Was going to be, yeah.
And
I mean,
I feel justified in being unexcited about it at the time now.
Yeah. I mean, I was never, don't get me wrong, I was never excited about it the way that I would be for something, you know, major or astronomical. It was just one of these things that I thought that'll be a fun little diversion. And actually for this period where I'm trying not to play too much that's very stressful, like, it's been ideal for that, but I've basically blazed through it in about a day, probably less actually. And it's something that I'm glad I've seen. It's a series that I haven't encountered up till now and probably won't go back to unless they really drastically change it, but I'm glad to have had the shot of it. It's not a bad game by any stretch. It's like a solid like 7 or an 8 for me. Like, good production values, nice ideas. Each level of the hotel that you're working your way up brings a new dimension. Like, you'll have some levels that are supposed to be like a natural history museum or like a film studio, and it just changes the dynamic of what you're trying to do and how you approach the puzzles, but nothing will take you more than 2 or 3 seconds of thinking to work out what you're meant to do. So yeah, it is what it is. Like you said, it's pretty much exactly what you said and what a lot of reviewers said back on release last year. It's kind of there and it's fine and it's good fun, but it's not going to change your life in any stretch. So that's what I've been playing pretty much this week. How about yourself?
Well, I have finished now Doom Eternal, which was just tremendous. It's just a fantastic game, right? It's not without its issues, which I am going to talk about now. However, I want the listeners to know that my overarching feelings towards this game were that it was great and I really, really enjoyed my time with it. However, there are some incredibly, incredibly frustrating elements to the game, not least of which is the platforming that has been introduced. So for those of you that don't know, basically a Celeste-style dash has been introduced, and in actual fact, double dash has been introduced, which allows you to, well, dash around, but also allows you to dash onto platforms and to dash onto like specific walls that have grips on them that you can clearly get onto as the player, like, you know, video games. Yeah. These in first person are really, really difficult to do. Not really, really difficult, that's not what I mean, really. I just rarely found that I was as in control as I should have been. Sometimes you dash towards a wall where you think you can grab on and everything's fine, and then you press the dash button and then suddenly you're 3 feet to the left and you've missed it entirely and you've fallen to your death. And things like that happen very, very frequently, and I just think that it's because 3D platforming in general is a difficult thing to nail, and 3D platforming in the first person, I don't think I've ever seen it done well. It was interesting to me as well that when I read reviews about this game, many reviewers had said that they didn't mind the 3D platforming. So I was kind of thinking, I don't know if this was just me, but in actual fact, the more I read about it online, I think more gamers had started to find this quite frustrating and not a great addition to the game. It felt like they had to add something, and they added the dash, and then they thought, oh, well, what can we do with this dash? Oh, we can do some platforming, you know? But in actual fact, I don't really think that that was beneficial to the game very much at all. However, the dash itself during combat is incredible. It just makes everything so much more fluid. It just increases the already lightning fast pace of combat encounters. It's absolutely superb. I have no qualms with the dash at all. It's just how it's used in those platforming sections that is just rough sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's really rough. Something else they also introduced was swimming mechanics. Now, Lewis, swimming mechanics in video games are famously brilliant, aren't they?
Oh, God.
They are famously fantastic, obviously. No, this is obviously facetious. They are terrible. And again, in first person, also really very bad. And particularly when the game makes you swim through like poisonous waters, which deplete your health for how long that you're in there. And if you feel not very in control of the character, and in some situations, a point blank refuses to surface, it can be very frustrating. They also introduced like really good things though. For example, the dash itself, superb during combat. Another thing that I really liked was the extra life system, which is like an old school 1-up extra life that you can find on maps, like just as a collectible. And if you die, it won't even restart. You'll just use one of your extra life tokens. The screen goes a bit grey and then you just continue. And it's just an excellent way of just continuing the combat, you know, just like keeping the action rolling, which is really, really good. I would say that you don't die terribly often, I'm going to say, but sometimes in like boss fights and encounters, like sometimes these can come in very handy for things like that, and it just means you don't have to start the whole thing again, you know, because sometimes you can be really punished for making like one mistake. Speaking of being punished, they have introduced a new enemy called the Marauder. Now, the backstory of the Marauder is that he's supposed to be kind of like you. He's like a demonic version of you, and he is one of the worst enemies introduced into a video game I have ever encountered. He is so terrible. He is so juxtaposed to every other enemy in the game and halts the fun combat. And the reason for this is that he operates completely differently to every single enemy, and that he will block just about everything that you throw at him with a shield. So if you shoot him with anything, he will block it with a shield. There are some ways to get around that, I know, with like sticky grenades and like explosions work a bit better. However, what you have to do with this enemy is stand at a mid-range, allow him to attack you. His eyes kind of flash green very, very briefly. The window to do this is very, very small, and you keep in mind. His eyes flash green when he's going to attack you at mid-range, and then you have to counter him very quickly, and then he'll sort of stagger, and then you can get another shot in. And then it's just back to the same thing again. So it really arrests the combat, because he is also by far the most powerful enemy in the game. And in actual fact, I struggled more with Marauder encounters than I did with any boss fight in the game.
So is this not a boss fight then? Is this just an encounter?
This was introduced initially as a boss fight. Like the first time that you fight him is basically like a boss fight. But they do then just drop into encounters sometimes. And when that happens, everything stops, like, because you then have to just deal with him. And then no matter what else you're doing, you then, like, your focus has to be on him because he will kill you immediately as well. So his other attacks are, if you stand at long range, you'll do this laser sword thing at you. And if you stand at close range, he'll shotgun you in the face. So you have to stand in mid-range, in which he will lunge at you with his sword. And if you don't counter him, he does a massive amount of damage. And also, if you shoot him at the wrong time and he puts up his shield, he will spawn this, like, demon dog thing, which you can kill in one shot. But if you miss, it also deals an absolutely colossal amount of damage. So what happened to me in several occasions is that I basically spent quite a long time running away from him because I was already in fairly low health. Went around all the kind of minor enemies, got my health back, had an encounter with him, he depleted all my health. I then ran around the arena again trying to get all my health back. Then I had an encounter with him, then he depleted all my health. Then I had dove around the arena again, then got all my health. And it was just really like, oh my god, like this really, really dull fight. It was just like a crap. It wasn't even that the fight was hard, it was just rubbish. It was totally against everything else in the entire game. As I said before when we were talking about Doom, it's just like action. It's all go all the time until you fight a marauder, in which case everything comes to a screeching halt. They really are a truly awful enemy. And again, I thought that I was just being a whiny bitch about this, like I really did. But I've subsequently went online and no, loads of people found this.
Yeah.
You do eventually, as the game goes on, like get a bit more used to them. You get the timing and you get what you're supposed to be doing. But the way that the game tells you to fight them is to like stand in this mid-range and then wait for him to attack you. And that mid-range is so ambiguous. Like sometimes he's hitting you with his laser sword, which he's only supposed to do when you're quite far away. Sometimes he's shotgunning you, which you're only supposed to do when you're really close. And where that middle ground is incredibly vague. And again, if you fuck up at any moment, he will absolutely punish you. Like he will deplete your health so quickly, so quickly, and you just spend quite a lot of time running away from him, which is a bit crap. Which was totally against the ethos of Doom. Like you're supposed to be running at the enemies, not the other way around.
Well, that's literally what you were saying about it last week. Was like that you never run away. So
yeah, I really did not like them at all. I really thought that they were a very poor addition to the game. Just one final word as well, like on the actual battle arenas themselves, I think this time round, because a lot of the time you're fighting in buildings, you're supposed to be in Earth, or you're supposed to be in like in other like kind of otherworldly buildings and temples and stuff like that. Sometimes I felt as if the battle arenas felt a lot more constrained than in Doom 2016, which is a kind of minor gripe. Like this isn't really a major thing. My major gripes are platforming and the Marauder. Those are the two major gripes, but this is just a sort of minor thing. I felt as if you were a lot more constrained, and that there was a lot of platforming within the battle arenas as well. So you were doing a lot more kind of jumping around, and it felt as if they introduced this like amazing mechanic that if they just opened up the arena a wee bit more, like you could dash about great. And then in some situations where you were given like quite an open arena, like you felt as if you were like flying around this map, killing enemies just left, right, and center, and it just felt so great. And sometimes it just felt as if they've given you this incredible mechanic, but we're going to constrain you to the point where you can't really use it very effectively. Sometimes you also lose lives or just die outright because you're just swarmed by enemies and you can't really get around them because you're in quite narrow areas. And when you die like that, it just feels a bit cheap, you know? It doesn't feel like it's really, oh, well, they can have earned that because I fucked up or whatever. It's just like, no, they just crammed 40 enemies into this tiny little space and I couldn't get out. But overall, I don't want to end on any sort of negative because overall, the game is great. The combat is fantastic. As a first-person shooter, it is right up there. I personally prefer Doom 2016, in all honesty. Yeah. I personally prefer Doom 2016. I felt as if some of the stuff that they added to this game, they just added because they felt as if they had to add stuff, which is a problem with a lot of sequels, I suppose. But overall, very, very good. Very, very worth playing. Totally worth your money, totally worth your time.
Very good, very interesting. Like you obviously were so excited about this coming out and loved Doom 2016 when you played it pretty recently. That was the one question I wanted to ask you all the way through what you were saying there was how does it compare to the previous one? And it's a shame. That is a real shame that they have, in an attempt to grow, they've made it maybe not as good.
But I'm not saying that it's a bad game. I'm definitely not saying that it's a bad game, to be totally clear. It's great. It's really, really, really great. But it just happens to be not quite as great as the previous one.
Yeah.
For me anyway.
Wow. Well, good stuff. I mean, I think, a lot of people, including myself, are still going to check it out, but the same issues kind of came up for Resident Evil 3 Remake as well, that these new games that are based on, or like evolving from, fairly recent good additions to their series, and they're not quite hitting the marks. That's interesting as we come towards the end of the generation, but I still can't wait to try it out. I'm kind of dreading the platforming, if I'm honest, but, and this Marauder thing sounds like a fucking nightmare, but yeah, the combat and the action in the previous one was so
truly
good,
are, Liz. They truly are. Start with Doom 2016. That would be my recommendation.
Cool.
And if you like that, you will like Doom Eternal. It will frustrate you, but you will still like Doom Eternal. All right, and onto the news. All right, and news item number 1. IGN has announced a Summer of Gaming event for early June. And this follows the cancellation of E3. This would be a global digital event, and partners would include 2K, Square Enix, Sega, Bandai Namco, Amazon, Google Stadia, Twitter, Devolver Digital, and THQ Nordic, and more. It promises big announcements, gameplay videos, interviews, and reveals. They also said that there would be a whole season of live broadcasting and on-demand programming. However, it wasn't quite clear what they meant by season. There's no dates for this yet. They've not told us how long it's going to be. It also features digital presentations which will be streamed with IGN pre- and post-show coverage, as well as developer interviews, game demos, hands-on previews, gameplay reveals and reactions. And all of this will be accessible over 20 platforms, including desktop, mobile, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Mixer, Twitch, everywhere you would expect to see this. And in Damon Hatfield's video announcing the event, they also specifically mentioned the next-gen consoles and the games we would be playing there. So hopefully we would get to see some next-gen stuff as well at this event. So what about E3 itself, you might be asking? Well, the ESA has confirmed that there will be no online presentation in place of E3 2020, which contradicts what they'd previously said, and that they were going to try and do something, but have instead announced the dates for E3 2021, which will be June the 15th to the 17th. Microsoft have also announced off the back of this that all of their events, both internal and external, would be transitioned to digital-first experiences until July 2021, which would presumably mean that there would be no live event for the Xbox Series X launch, there would be no live presentation at Gamescom, and if those dates are correct, there would be no live presentation at E3 2021 either. So, Lewis, lots there.
Lots
what
indeed.
do you think?
Yeah, it's a big moment for this kind of summer, this strange summer we're going to have without an E3, and as everyone struggles around to make something work. We've lost the kind of normal platforms that we would get these major game announcements over the next few months. I'm really sceptical that Gamescom could go ahead in its kind of
it won't. I think it's
format.
increasingly looking like it's going to be an online event or something. I don't think they could possibly go ahead with their usual event because something like 300,000 people normally go to Gamescom, and the floor at Gamescom is just a sea of people elbow to elbow. There's no way they can do that.
Yeah, it would just, even if we've kind of got the all clear by then, it would probably be deemed pretty irresponsible to risk it. So yeah, I think IGN here have done a really good and interesting thing. If anyone's going to be able to step into that void, they're fairly prime candidates for that. Sounds like they've got some good publishers and teams involved. Yeah, it sounds like we're going to get some really interesting stuff out of that. What's your take? Do you think you'll be tuning in for this?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope I would be able to tune in for at least some of this. With time differences around the world, you don't know how possible that's going to be, although E3 was never very friendly to us here in the UK either. But yeah, I mean, it sounds great. I mean, if IGN are able to give these developers a platform to make awesome announcements that we will all look forward to seeing, then I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be excited about this as we would be for E3 or anything else. I think it'll be interesting to see who actually makes announcements as well. I know that Bethesda have said that they won't be doing anything this year, basically, now that E3's gone. Microsoft obviously sounds as if they're going to be doing their own thing. PlayStation, we're always going to be doing their own thing. I don't know what Nintendo's going to be doing now. They're probably just going to release a Direct at some point, I would think. So I think it's good. I think that it's only a good thing. Again, if IGN can give developers this platform to make some awesome announcements, they can get some awesome content with interviews and whatever round about that, then awesome. I don't see any reason to complain about this.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a really key point as well, that maybe some of the major publishers, your Xbox, your PlayStation and your Nintendo aren't going to do this. They maybe are all going to go ahead and do their own things. And like you said, Bethesda have said the same thing, or that they're going to focus, I think they said they're going to focus on games individually rather than do one big kind of showcase of everything, which is, I think that's a fair enough way to go about it. But the thing that IGN can offer is for those kind of second and third tier publishers and smaller dev teams who are usually competing at E3 and at these big shows for the kind of airtime around the bigger players in the market, so to speak, they're going to get some coverage, and they're going to get some front page of IGN coverage, which is not to be sniffed at for a lot of these teams. So I think it's a good thing, and it might, I guess this whole event, this whole crazy situation we're in is going to change things. The way we've been talking about E3 needing to change for a while now, there's no reason to think that next year everything will just go back to how it's been. This is going to introduce new ideas, new ways of doing things, maybe it'll kill off some old ideas that we didn't even realise that we didn't need anymore. So I think it's a really interesting time for kind of video games promotion, and maybe we'll see some new stuff kind of come to the fore.
Yeah, I definitely worry about E3 and all this, I've got to say.
Yep.
All right, news item number 2. Loads of Resident Evil 8 rumours have resurfaced this week. Some old, some new. The first set come from a series of tweets by known leaker Aesthetic Gamer. These reaffirm some of the old rumours, such as that you will play as Ethan Winters from RE7 in the new game. The new game will also be first person, as RE7 was. And the game will include mythical creatures like werewolves, which is a bit of a change for the series. However, he also added that the game would be coming in 2021 and would be cross-gen, as well as adding that thematically and mechanically there would be serious departures from a traditional RE game, including things like hallucination and occultism and insanity sequences, which would be a bit of a departure from the traditional zombie horror game that Resident Evil is. This was the same leaker that back in January said that Resident Evil 8 would be, quotes, years away. Apparently the reason for that is because this version of Resident Evil 8 spent most of its life being Revelations 3 and not a mainline Resident Evil 8 game. However, testing for this Revelations 3 was very positive and has subsequently been upgraded, if you like, to a mainline game and to Resident Evil 8. After this, more rumours surfaced from a website called Biohazard Declassified that also caught some traction. This including the name, which will apparently be Resident Evil 8 Village, and will feature a witch that will hunt the player, kind of Mr. X style or Nemesis style from RE2 and RE3, and that Chris Redfield, OG Chris, will also feature a prominent role in the game. So, again, lots of rumours there. How are you feeling about RE8?
I think it's good that we're getting some of this stuff. It feels like one of these no smoke without fire situations, that there's quite a lot dropping all at once. Seems like they all kind of relate to one another. I didn't play Resident Evil 7, so I'm not sure how far this is spun away from what I understand the Resident Evil game to be. But it
werewolves and witches, man. Well,
exactly.
That's a departure, man.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
a big departure.
I don't know if if Resident Evil 7 kind of started going down those routes.
I know that it did have different sort of monsters. Mm-hmm. I also didn't play very much of RE7, and anything that I did play was in VR, which was a truly horrifying experience. But it wasn't like the traditional zombie, we'll say.
I'm not against them trying new things with that franchise, particularly when we're now getting the remakes kind of feeding in as well. And if they are still looking at doing other spin-off games and stuff like that, people will still get their fix. And, you know, I think we all acknowledge now that Resident Evil has almost got several different kind of ways of being. It's a survival horror game. It's also an action horror game. Maybe now it's going to be more of a kind of psychological horror going forward from sort of 7, 8 onwards. So I'm not afraid of them trying new stuff, but it does feel a little bit to me like a rush job. If they have essentially bumped a different game up into the main line so that they can get it out. I think it was said it was going to be Q1 of 2021. So
the Capcom window.
Yeah, essentially the Capcom window, right? Which means it's probably less than a year or about a year from Resident Evil 3 Remake, which is only a year after Resident Evil 2 Remake. I get that it's hot right now and I get that people want it and are interested in playing these games, but the review scores for 3 Remake weren't amazing, weren't as good as they might have been, and I do worry that a bit of fatigue will creep in. So spinning it off in new directions is great if that keeps that away, but I wonder if by the end of 2021 we might be kind of saying, kind of had enough of this right now, you know, and need something fresh.
Yeah,
you know?
I've had my fill.
Yeah.
No, I definitely get that. I must admit the fact that it was previously another game effectively and has now been upgraded to a mainline game was slightly concerning for me as well. Although, to be honest, sitting here right now, still have no reason to doubt Capcom. As far as I'm concerned, they have made a series of stellar games recently, and there's no reason for me to think right now that this won't be one. So I'm perfectly willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least for the time being. Alright, news item number 3. Sony has announced the indefinite delay of The Last of Us Part 2 and Iron Man VR. Sony has made this statement on Twitter.
SIE has made the difficult decision to delay the launch of The Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Iron Man VR until further notice. Logistically, the global crisis is preventing us from providing the launch experience our players deserve. Currently, there are no other delays to report, but we'll keep you updated.
And Naughty Dog also made this statement on Twitter regarding The Last of Us.
As you've likely just seen, the release of The Last of Us Part 2 has been delayed. We're sure this news is just as disappointing to you as it is to us. We wanted to reach out to all of you in our community to give you a little more information. The good news is we're nearly done with the development of The Last of Us Part 2. We are in the midst of fixing our final bugs. However, even with us finishing the game, we were faced with the reality that due to logistics beyond our control, we couldn't launch The Last of Us Part 2 to our satisfaction. We want to make sure everyone gets to play The Last of Us Part 2 around the same time, ensuring that we're doing everything possible to preserve the best experience for everyone. This meant delaying the game until such a time where we can solve these logistical issues. We were bummed about this decision, but ultimately understood it's what's best and fair to all of our players. We're hoping that this won't be a long delay and we'll update you as soon as we have new information to share. We wish you all, your families and your friends the best of health. Thank you for being amazing fans and your continued support. Stay safe.
So another casualty to the coronavirus. Obviously, we know that Final Fantasy VII Remake struggled with their distribution, and as well Resident Evil 3 also struggled with their distribution. The difference is that both of those games, well, at least Resident Evil 3 would have probably have gone gold by that point and would have probably had started the manufacturing process. I would have thought that Final Fantasy VII would have been in a similar sort of boat. However, I think that The Last of Us Part 2 and Iron Man VR as well, I know that we're just talking about The Last of Us Part 2 here, but it is certainly the bigger game of the two, wouldn't have started that process yet. And as you've just heard in their statement, they were still finalising the game. So I think that then to start that process now would be a very difficult thing to do in the current climate, which is why the game has been pushed. I have to think as well that Ghost of Tsushima, which comes out in June, I believe,
Correct.
must be in the crosshairs here as well to get a push as well.
I think, yeah, that's a fair comment. The only thing with Ghost of Tsushima is that they maybe have long enough to look at changing contracts or whatever to move towards an all digital distribution. A lot of people are suggesting that part of the reason that The Last of Us 2 can't just go all digital is that there'll already be contracts in place with storefronts and that kind of thing. So I wonder though, and I guess it's the other big question around all this, obviously the logistics is important, obviously the kind of leaks that could happen from Final Fantasy VII Remake arriving with people early don't matter quite as much in the grand scheme of things because it's a game that a lot of the people who are playing it will have played before and already know, and The Last of Us Part 2 is going to have serious spoilers that a physical distribution could mess up. But how much do you think COVID-19 itself plays into this? Do you think that Sony don't want to release this game right now?
Due to the fact that there is a global pandemic happening and the game is a zombie game.
Yeah, it's about the aftermath of a pandemic and all the terrible things that have happened to society.
I honestly don't think that does play into it very much at all, genuinely. I understand why people would think that way, but I think that it would have been financially beneficial for Sony to have released this game when they wanted to, and that would have taken precedence for a company the size of PlayStation and Sony. So no, I don't really think that, and I actually think that they've probably done the right thing here for their game and for their players. The Last of Us will be a big deal when it comes out, and it deserves that gravitas, you know?
Yeah.
And if it has to be pushed a few months to get that, I know it's already been pushed from February to May, and now it's going to be pushed till May until God knows when. But I just think that it's such an important game. It's going to be such a big deal when it comes out that it just deserves to come out right. And if it means that we have to wait a few more months for it, then I'm okay with it,
yeah,
honestly.
I basically agree with that, but I do personally think that the reality of the virus plays a part there, because that idea of giving it the right launch, as you put it, which is absolutely what it deserves, it's very hard to put out adverts for a game like that just now. It's very hard for people to want to listen to that kind of stuff.
I mean, you're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
Yeah, but obviously, you know, where Sony comes in, the finances is the main thing. Any mess up with the distribution, any difficulty of getting it to players and potential refunds and that's the main issue. I'm not denying that, but I honestly do think that both that and Resident Evil 3 Remake, if they had been in different circumstances, may not have released just now either for the same reason, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I just worry about the actual next-gen consoles as well. Phil Spencer has actually acknowledged that the Series X team is, quotes, stretched, but is planning to go ahead with the console launch as planned, effectively. And he's also said that a staggered launch for different regions wasn't really in consideration for them. This was all speaking in an interview to IGN. We'll put links in the show notes to that at PlayersToo.com. It's actually quite a good interview with Phil Spencer. But as far as Xbox are concerned, as of right now, we're going ahead with the launch, and that is that. And I'm sure PlayStation are on the same boat. I just don't know how much longer that attitude is going to hold any water, you know? Alright, and news item number 4. The BAFTA Game Awards have been announced, Lewis. I always think that the BAFTAs come very late in the year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's April and we're still talking about the Game of the Year for 2019. However, they have now been announced. The awards were completely live streamed and it was all done online with pre-recorded acceptance speeches for the winners. I watched a little bit of this and actually it played okay. I thought that it played okay as a spectacle to watch, but obviously it doesn't have the same gravitas as it would do without a live audience there.
Yeah.
I mean, of course it does. But under the circumstances, I think they did all right. And Darragh O'Brien, who was hosting it, done pretty well, I thought, for the small section that I saw anyway. But the big winner of the night, Lewis, the best game winner, was The Outer Wilds.
Was indeed, yeah, and it's about time, to be totally honest. It took until the bloody, like you say, one of the latest Game Awards for 2019 for this game to get recognised, but to scoop best game against, all of the contenders that you would imagine, including Untitled Goose Game, which is remarkably kept scooping awards recently as well.
Yeah, and Luigi's Mansion 3, Lewis.
And Luigi's Mansion, yeah, I'm not sure that deserves to be on that list at all, but it's just Outer Wilds. I can't say it enough. You would have heard me going on about it last week when I finally finished it. It is a truly astounding game, a really inventive game, a clever game, quite a moving game towards the end especially. It kept getting overlooked because of things like Untitled Goose Game having all this kind of noise around it, and then something like Disco Elysium came along and ate its lunch a wee bit in a lot of the other award shows because it really set critics alight just before a lot of those awards were happening. So I feel like Outer Wilds got really overlooked and it totally deserves the plaudits that it got here. I'm glad that BAFTA recognised that. It also scooped game design, so it was really kind of celebrated that night, and I think that that's a really good thing for it. Yeah,
I must admit, I've written in my notes here that Outer Wilds does feel a bit underrepresented at the kind of recent Game Awards, just across all categories, let alone Game of the Year itself. So it's really nice to see a game that I know that so many people loved taking the top award. Just to run through the rest of the winners very quickly. Animation went to Luigi's Mansion 3, actually. This is actually the second animation award that Luigi's Mansion has won. I think it won at the DICE Awards as well. And I cannot understand it, winning against things like Call of Duty, Death Stranding, Sekiro, Control. Someone will have to explain to me why the animation in that game is so good.
It does look gorgeous, but yeah, I couldn't possibly answer that either.
Next up was Artistic Achievement. This went to Sayonara Wild Hearts, which totally fair enough. The game looks absolutely gorgeous. Audio Achievement went to Ape Out. Again, one of our play-along games from back in January. Although it wasn't my favourite game, what it's doing with its music and its audio was very, very, very clever. Best British game went to Observation, something that me and you definitely have to get around to playing. Absolutely. Because the studio is from Glasgow.
Yeah, No Code's based here in Glasgow. Yeah, I've put it on my quarantine list at the moment, I think.
Oh, nice. The quarantine list, I like that. Best debut game went to Disco Elysium, and how could anyone argue? Evolving game went to Path of Exile, which was an unusual choice, I thought anyway, when it was up against things like Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy XIV, Shadowbringers, Fortnite, No Man's Sky, but there you have it.
There you go.
Best family game went to Untitled Goose Game. It couldn't not win anything, so there it is. Game Beyond Entertainment went to Kind Words, which is another thing I think I need to get around to playing. I've heard a lot of cool things about Kind Words, but tough category, and yeah, it took it. Best game design, again, as you said, went to Outer Wilds list, which was another great one for it to get. Best multiplayer was Apex Legends. I don't know how it could have went to anything else in 2019, to be completely honest with you.
But good on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely good on it. Next up was Best Music, and this went to Disco Elysium. Now, full disclosure, the track for this was done by a British band, Lewis has just told me, so I think there might have been some prejudice there. However, there you have it. Best Music went to Disco Elysium. Best Narrative also went to Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium took away the most awards with 3. Best Original Property went to Outer Wilds as well. Oh no, is that 3 for Outer Wilds?
It is as well, yeah.
Were they equal? Alright, sorry, the two of them were equal on 3. Best Performer in a Leading Role went to Gonzalo Martin as Sean Diaz in Life is Strange 2, which is great to see that game getting some awards again. I felt as if that was probably a bit underrepresented.
Absolutely, it has been, yeah.
Best Performance in a Supporting Role went to Marty Sai. How are you saying that last name there, Lewis? Susalo. He's a Swedish gentleman, I know, and he played Artie, the janitor in Control, who was fucking awesome. Yeah, and I'm very glad that he's got an award for that.
Definitely, yeah.
Technical achievement went to Death Stranding, the only award that went to Death Stranding. And EE Mobile Game of the Year went to Call of Duty Mobile, not to What the Golf, as it should have done.
That one was voted for by the public, though, so that...
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
oh,
that kind of tells you something.
Popularity contest then. Ugh. Now, interesting fun fact as well, just before we move on from this. Both Control and Death Stranding received a record-breaking number of nominations with 11. No game has ever got that amount of nominations before, and they both got it in the same year. Control never got a single award out of those 11, and Death Stranding got one.
There you go.
Remarkable. Alright, and finishing off as we always do with a couple of shout outs. First up is Final Fantasy VII Remake. The reviews are in. Currently sitting at a very healthy 87 on Metacritic. That includes 11 10s and 41 reviews scored at a 9 or higher, which is very, very good. And ultimately, it just looks fantastic, basically. It looks really, really good.
Yeah, it's universally seems to be well liked. The only gripes I've seen about it are that some of the extensions to that opening sort of chapter of the original game aren't that necessary, but the combat has been praised, the visuals are being praised, other than a few texture issues. Yeah, it sounds like they've really hit the nail on the head with it. And I think for people who love the original, like you did, obviously, it's going to be a kind of real achievement and a real moment in gaming for you. So I can't wait till we get our hands on it and we start being able to talk about it properly.
Definitely. All right, shout out number 2. Speaking of Disco Elysium, the developers at Zaum have announced that the Switch port is in the works. We already knew that there was going to be a PS4 and an Xbox port, but it's really good to know that it's coming to Switch as well. You think you'll hold out for the Switch version? You love a Switch version of all games.
I do love a Switch version. I actually think that I'm pretty likely to play it on PC before any of these ports come now. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there we go. Going to bite the bullet?
I think so, yeah. I think we're pretty much there now, yeah.
Alright, shout out number 3. Jason Schreier over at Kotaku has written an article titled "Despite huge sales, Borderlands 3 developers are being stiffed on bonuses." Now, the devs that work at Gearbox who make Borderlands 3 were supposed to be getting large bonuses due to a 60-40 profit sharing royalty scheme which they operate, but this is basically in lieu of wages because they get paid below industry standards basically, but to make up for it they get this enormous bonus, and these bonuses can range from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. But they've effectively been told that they're not going to get anywhere near the amount that they were supposed to be getting. And Randy Pitchford, the head of Gearbox, has also apparently said that if they are not happy with the royalty scheme, then they are welcome to quit, which is a truly arsehole move to say in times like these. But yeah, it's just quite a horrible situation over there. We'll post links to the article over on PlayersToo.com. Give it a read. It's a fairly harrowing article, I've got to say. But man, can you just imagine putting all that work into that game and then to get this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and then just to find that it's fucking half full?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly, yeah. The pot is full, you're just not getting as much of it as you thought you were, which is terrible, particularly, like you say, right now.
Yeah, and considering the game is so successful as well.
Yeah.
Alright, and shout out number 4. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate is currently 50% off for a 6-month subscription, sort of a. What you have to do basically is buy a 3-month subscription for $32.99 at Game or Amazon, and you get 3 months free, which is an absolutely fantastic deal. Games Pass is just continuing to be the best deal in gaming, bar none. It will be available until May the 14th, and Lewis Camley was in fact telling me that he was very interested in getting this.
Yeah, I might finally be jumping ship towards Xbox. I mean, not really.
This is unprecedented, ladies and gentlemen. Unprecedented.
I've been seeing deals for it a lot recently, including this one. There was also a kind of introductory, like £1 offer for your first month and that kind of thing. Basically,
yeah, I've seen that as well.
What I wanted to do was grab it to play Ori Will of the Wisps and just give that a shot and play it on my laptop and see how that goes. And obviously, if the service was then offering me other games that looked worth sticking around for, I would continue that subscription basically. So yeah, it might be the time to check it out. Nice
one, man, nice one. I've got to say, it's caught my eye as well. I might need to seriously look into it. And surprise shout out number 5. PlayStation have just this very second, as we record this, the new design for the PlayStation 5 controller, which is called the DualSense, Lewis. How would you describe this, Lewis?
Where to begin? Yeah, this is they've put out some imagery and a blog post over on the PlayStation blog. Links as ever in the show notes on PlayersToo.com. This is a two-tone, a white and black, kind of slightly more rounded ergonomic looking piece of work, Mark. I don't know what to say about it. It's my first reaction is that I think I love it, but there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. Again, it's the first time it has been two-tone. It's the first time so much white has been predominant on the PlayStation. I don't remember any white PlayStations before. I know that they had like special editions ones that were white, but I don't remember any white PlayStations at all. They've also removed the colours from the X, circle, square, triangle face buttons. It does still have a large touchpad, which I'm disappointed hasn't left, to be completely honest. It doesn't seem to have the programmable back buttons that we were told might be coming, and might have been in line with what PlayStation was doing with their PlayStation 4 controller back add-on that gave you programmable buttons. Or at least there's no mention of that, shall I say. But overall, aesthetically, I think I do quite like it, actually. It's bold. It's not what I would have expected from Sony.
Yeah, it's very bold. I mean, I was expecting the DualShock 5 would be exactly like the DualShock 4, with very minor tweaks
chunkier and
slightly redesigned, but nothing much. But this is substantial. It might well indicate what the console itself is going to look like. Who knows? The share button's still there, but it's been changed to the create button, which suggests more functionality. The light bar's moved, but still exists within the controller. It's still like an evolution on DualShock 4, but quite a rapid and big change from the previous model as well, you know.
I know it's a small thing, but it's USB-C, which is really, really, really excellent for a nerd like me. Yeah. No, I do. I think it looks great. As you said, it might be an indication of how the console is going to look. As you pointed out to me off air, the controller has always matched the console, and as it sort of should. You know, they are two symbiotic pieces of hardware. Yeah, very striking. I like it a lot. Like I'm literally just digesting this as I am speaking now, and I think I do. I think I like it a lot. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and after that surprise announcement, it's time for a beer, and we will be back with Topic of the Week. And we are back with Topic of the Week. Topic of the week this week is our video game suggestions for the lockdown, Lewis.
It is indeed, yeah. So we've been in lockdown for a couple of weeks now, and I guess depending on where you are, you're either further into that or just starting. Like a lot of places, we're just thinking a lot right now about what kind of games are going to get us through, what's going to be a strange and fairly quiet a few weeks, potentially months. So I wanted to start this off because I feel personally like my sense of gaming, for a lot of people, gaming has filled the space that has been left by a lot of other things leaving our lives just now. I've actually found gaming quite difficult right now. I've been thinking a lot about what kind of games I want to play, what sort of stuff I feel comfortable playing, the kinds of games that I really don't want to be approaching just now. Like I've mentioned that at several points over the last few weeks. So I just kind of wanted to start off by asking you, Mark, like, do you feel like what you want to play, what you feel like playing, has that changed at all because of this situation?
Well, I think there is two distinct opinions about this, or two distinct feelings about the approach to playing video games during this time. One is basically what you're saying, in that you're kind of changing what you want to play. You're kind of thinking about things that you don't want to play, and maybe, this would be better now because I'm feeling a bit crap or whatever, or I don't want to think about a zombie apocalypse, so maybe RE3 isn't for me right now. However, I think the other opinion or a feeling around this is that it changes nothing, and that is basically where I am.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter to me if I was playing a zombie apocalypse game, or if I was playing Doom that was all about hell and demons and was quite intense, or I was playing Animal Crossing and it was all fun and lovely and fine and nice. So honestly, for me, genuinely, it doesn't change anything at all.
Yeah.
Because to me, video games are just an escape from the world around me, regardless of what it is, almost, you know?
Yeah. So I think that's the key to that. Like one of the other questions I wanted to kind of pose to you, and you've sort of half answered there, it was like, it's certainly made me think about how and why and what kinds of games I play beyond this lockdown situation, and that idea of an escape. That's kind of what I thought gaming was to me, and I've realised it's not as clear cut as that. I'm not looking at games right now and seeing that any one thing would take me out of thinking about it, but there's like different types of games that are maybe good for my head and some that are less good, or at least that certainly things like Resident Evil, not just because of the apocalypse thing, but anything that I feel like would be very stressful for me, I've really wanted to step away from. So I just wanted to kind of put that out as like a framing for this a bit.
I have to admit, I must say, I don't particularly want to jump into something massively stressful right now. I will give you that.
Yeah.
I will certainly give you that. Or maybe something that is quite emotionally draining. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to, but I'm not necessarily linking that to the virus either. Like I kind of ebb and flow with that anyway, naturally, as I'm sure many people do. And
totally,
you're in the mood for different things at different times. But yeah, so maybe right now I'm slightly less enthused about that. But if some game came out tomorrow. Like, for example, if The Last of Us came out tomorrow, then I would have zero hesitation about going to play it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess us doing this sort of forces our hand a wee bit anyway on that. But and also
It
what
certainly
games
does.
make you feel stressed, and what I find stressful in gaming is pretty much the opposite, I think, of what you do. I find shooting games pretty stressful and you obviously don't. So, but yeah, let's just dive into some thoughts and suggestions. One thing I wanted to mention just straight off the bat though was just like how good things like Apple Arcade and Xbox Game Pass are right now as well. These like fairly cheap subscription models which allow you to try a lot of things. So if you're not, a bit like me, if you're not finding exactly what you want to play right now, I think something like Apple Arcade or Xbox Game Pass, which we mentioned earlier, are really good places to start and just look around and try stuff out, and don't get bogged down in something that is not working for you. Just skip to the next thing.
Couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. I think that's an absolutely great take. But regards to specific games that you would recommend during this time, apart from the Outer Wilds, which we know you'd recommend so much just now, apart from that, what have you got?
Well, so yeah, there's a few things that I talk about quite a lot on the show that I think are really good picks for right now. Well, I guess I'll go maybe broader than that. I really think like puzzle games and strategy games are a really useful way to get your head thinking about something that isn't super stressful. And so because of that, I want to just highlight again a game like Baba Is You, a game that I know that you hated, which was The Witness. But
To be fair, I didn't hate The Witness. It just didn't click with me during the short time with which I tried to play it.
Yeah, but a bit like Outer Wilds, for me at least, those are games that just absolutely suck you in. In order to complete the puzzles that those types of games are presenting to you, you really need to be fully locked in. You can't really be thinking about anything else. You might just be staring at your screen for a long time thinking about it. For me, again, at least, that's something that I find puts me into like almost like a trance-like state where nothing else is happening except working out what that puzzle is. So that would just be my opening gambit here, is anything like that. Another one actually that you should definitely play at some point still is the Portal series. Those games, again, they're good fun. They have narrative, they have humour, absolutely gallons of humour, dark humour at that, but they are just so much fun to play and really make your head work in an interesting way rather than just a like, oh fuck, I'm stressed out, I'm being chased by monsters kind of thing. So
yeah, well, speaking of that, what I was thinking about as well is that a lot of people right now are stuck at home with their kids and family members and maybe wouldn't be gaming with previously, or maybe would be trying to introduce to something, or just to keep people occupied and just be inclusive and do things together. So my immediate go-to these days for recommendations on Couch Co-op is Overcooked and Overcooked 2.
Nice, yeah.
Which are super, super good. Very, very kid-friendly, obviously, but incredibly good fun. Really, really great to play as co-op. Me and Lewis played the first Overcooked together, and it was absolutely brilliant fun. We've not actually played Overcooked 2 yet, but as I understand it, it's basically more of the same,
Yeah.
which is 100% okay with me. And the other one that I just wanted to give a kind of brief shout out to in that sort of vein, the sort of co-op and playing together, playing as a family, is the Jackbox games. I can't remember which one it is that has Drawful in it, and I can't remember which one it is that has Quiplash in it. That might be one and the same, but those two games are absolutely superb to play with like a group of people, and you can even play it like from different houses and stuff like that together, and you can
nice.
play it like through your phones and whatever. They're really good. They're really, really good fun. Great laugh.
Nice. Drawful is actually free on the Epic Game Store at the moment.
Wow, there you go. There you go. The perfect opportunity. Really, really good fun. Really good fun.
Nice one. I've never approached any of those Jackbox games. That's pretty cool. I think you're totally right. Like that sense of both couch co-op and then online multiplayer as a way. I mean, I don't play a lot of online multiplayer games, as we've talked about at length before, but right now, I know that so many people out there are staying in touch through gaming. I know actually people in my own life who have taken up gaming right now in order to stay in touch with different people. So I think like
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's really nice. I know people who have been trying to buy Switches and stuff like that as well, just to kind of give themselves something to do during this. I know
that might not be an option
hard
just now, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think if you didn't get your order in on time, it's pretty touch and go.
Yeah. So again, I was kind of thinking about games that was like a kind of shorter experience that I can just kind of experience. It's a very low intensity game that's still good fun, it's still very creative and still very, very worth your time. And two that I kind of came up with was Journey, which is a superb, very calm, very serene gaming experience, and Unfinished Swan, actually,
nice,
which is another relatively short pretty low intensity experience. But again, very creative in what it's trying to do, and it could be good for like some moments during a lockdown where, say, you've got kids running about and you don't have a lot of time to play games.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's partly why Animal Crossing is sort of dominating the world at the moment.
Animal Crossing as well. I mean, I was kind of trying to avoid saying Animal Crossing as a recommendation, but Animal Crossing is, of course, very, very low intensity and is a brand new game and is exciting and new for people. I really think that it's probably come out at just the absolute perfect time for a lot of people. I mean, it is one of those games that you can just get completely lost in. It's 100% not for me, but if you can have a gaming experience like that just as a means of escapism for yourself during a difficult time, then fucking great. I mean, superb.
Totally,
I wouldn't say a bad thing against that for anyone.
It seems to be working for so many people. It's like absolutely dominating all online chat and stuff just now around games. So yeah, if that's your kind of thing, like you said, their market's definitely not ours. But in that same vein, I just wanted to mention a game that we've kind of brought up a few times recently that neither of us have played, but is definitely on my list to play just now, which is A Short Hike, which is this pretty short indie game, very lo-fi, no danger, no peril. It's just a kind of an exploration game. I think it's just basically about getting to the top of this hill in the middle of this village, and you can kind of discover little story elements along the way. It just seems to be, again, another one of these, a lot like Journey, I think, like just a kind of serene, interesting little game that isn't going to will take your head elsewhere but won't put you in any kind of stressful situations,
Yeah, absolutely. Just the kind of last category that I wanted to talk about a bit was suddenly a lot of people will have a lot of time to play a game as well that they might not have before, and they might be thinking about, right, what is a game that I would never have been able to get stuck into that now I can. And for anyone that owns a Switch and that hasn't already, please go and play Breath of the Wild if you haven't.
Oh yeah,
quite simply, it is one of the best games ever made. But also at a time like this, it is relatively low stress for big parts of the game, I would say. Not for all of the game, but for big parts of the game. It's definitely challenging enough for all players, certainly. But it's great. It gives you a tremendous sense of freedom, and it's just quite a wholesome game on the whole, but at the same time being incredibly good and having those puzzle elements as well and all the shrines that ties into what Lewis was saying. It is an absolutely perfect game for just now if you've got a lot of time in your hands, a lot of time to kill, quite frankly. There are definitely worse things you could be doing with your time than playing Breath of the Wild, I can tell you that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the Switch in some ways is perfect for this kind of time because obviously the other games there, like Link's Awakening, which came out tail end of 2018, was that, which was, superb and full of great puzzles as well. Mario Odyssey, I think, is one of the games of this generation still and is perfect for families and stuff as well. Obviously, you've got your kart racers. We both loved Crash Team Racing as well as Mario Kart, so another great couch co-op game. One Switch game, certainly Switch for me, that I intend to start during this strange time that we're in is Hollow Knight, which you obviously challenged me to do, and this seems like, because there is that length of time in front of us, who knows how long it's going to be, and certainly, as I said at the top of the show, I'm effectively not working for the next 3 weeks, so I've got a lot of time all of a sudden, and something like Hollow Knight is the kind of game that I just always want to play, but always think this is going to take me forever because I can only play an hour or two.
It demands a lot of your time.
Yeah,
it definitely demands a lot of your time.
Don't want to be playing that game in a way where I play it once for a couple of hours each Sunday and it lasts 7 months. Now it feels like I can get stuck into that. So, is there any games like that for you that maybe are back catalogue games that you want to get stuck into?
Not so much back catalogue games. I wasn't really thinking about that because right now I'm just thinking about the games that are coming out and that I need to go and play. Do you know what I mean? I'm not thinking about my back catalogue just now. However, I was thinking about other games sort of on the Switch, more sort of challenging games like Hollow Knight, for example, which is quite a difficult game. And then maybe you could take this time to like really challenge yourself in what you're capable of doing in a video game. And two that come to my mind immediately are, Celeste, which we mention on this podcast all the time, which has a very, it has a relatively intense story, but it's a story of hope quite a lot of the time, and it has a very kind of nice aesthetic to it as well, or I think so anyway. So I think that although it definitely can be stressful and it can definitely be frustrating, if that's the sort of challenge that you want to give yourself in this time, then Celeste is a great one. The other one that I was thinking about is, of course, Cuphead, which has tremendous difficulty, but at the same time has a very nice, lovely Hanna-Barbera style cartoons aesthetic to it, which is just very pleasant to look at and is still quite wholesome despite being incredibly difficult.
You just need to remain patient with that one. Again, that's
with both, dear me.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's a Cuphead for me as well, as one that I didn't ever actually finish, so it feels like the right time to go back and just put it to bed. Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I know.
Lewis,
I'm so close to the end.
Now's the time, man. Now's the time.
It was totally because my Joy-Cons just got buggered, so now that I've got a control and some time, I can get on with it. Moving away from the Switch, just really quickly, one PlayStation 4 game that I think is absolutely worth mentioning in this context is Spider-Man. If you have a PlayStation and you haven't played the new Spider-Man game, this is an absolutely ideal game to de-stress. It's got an incredible story. The traversal, you could just swing around Manhattan for days. Like, that is enough to sustain your interest. But there's loads to find in that game. I think the DLC pack is even going pretty cheap just now, so you can expand on it.
Yeah, it's actually really cheap.
Spider-Man 2, when it came out like a decade or whatever ago, was just absolutely a game like that for me, and the new one is so good. I cannot recommend that highly enough, and I think it's a good one to pick up just now if you haven't played it yet.
Yeah, definitely. Just speaking of another couple of good deals, I just kind of done a very quick glance over some of the spring sales that are happening just now. On Switch, for example, Rayman Legends is $7.50, and Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is also $7.50, and I actually picked that up myself.
Nice.
Both of which are family friendly, both of which are multiplayer. On PlayStation just now, The Last of Us, if you do choose to play a zombie apocalypse game at this particular moment, is only $8.99 just now. God of War is $14.74, which is an odd price, but it's because of the PlayStation Plus discount. Horizon Zero Dawn is also $14.74. The Division 2 is currently $7.99, which is incredibly cheap for that game. Kingdom Hearts 3, which is another, again, family-friendly game. Not our cup of tea, but I know that a lot of people are into it. On the PlayStation Store right now, it is currently $16.49. And The Witcher 3, again, if you want to get into one of these epics, then it's only $12.99 just now on the PlayStation Store. On Xbox, obviously, on Xbox, you guys have got the Games Pass. I would definitely invest in that for £1 a month, and you can play whatever the hell you want. I know for a fact that Nier Automata is just joined the Games Pass, and I would highly recommend that. And on Steam just now, No Man's Sky is currently $19.99 for all you PC players.
Very good stuff. Yeah, there's deals and sales going on everywhere. Like, any platform that you game on, now's a chance to look around and see what's out there. Pick up some indie gems. Like, that's definitely something to do just now. If you've got more time than you usually do, play something that you might not have got around to. It's absolutely the right time for that kind of thing. And as well, like you said, with Game Pass there and with PlayStation Plus, like, look out for your free monthly games. Look out for the stuff that you might never bother with, but you're getting for free right now, or you're getting super cheap, and give them a bash as well.
Yeah, and if you need any recommendations, or if you're struggling for something to play, reach out to us. I mean, we might not be able to help, but we'll try our best.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got any for us as well, like, don't hesitate to give us a shout on social media. We'd love to know what you guys are playing and what you would recommend we try out just now, because God knows we've got a lot of time to fill, so we better find some games to fill.
Well, some of us do. Some of us are on furlough, for fuck's sake. Some of us still need to work.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll call it a day there. I'd like to remind everyone that you can find PlayersToo on all the social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, the lot. You can also find our written content over at playerstoo.com. That's PLAYERSTOO.com. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podchaser, wherever, it really helps us out. I cannot emphasize this enough. It really helps us out so much. And if you could take 5 seconds to give us 5 stars, particularly on Apple Podcasts, but really anywhere, it really does help us out. And if you could leave us a review as well, that just helps us out even more. And if you leave us a review, please let us know on social media and we'll give you a shout out. I'd also like to remind everyone that our play-along game for this month, which is something that I would also definitely recommend that everyone plays, is Telling Lies. This is the spiritual successor to Her Story, which we covered last month, and is also by Sam Barlow. And I'm very much looking forward to playing that. I'll definitely be playing that maybe this week. If not this week, then definitely next week.
Nice.
I won't be leaving it to the last second again, which I did with Our Story. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week.
Thank you.